Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, City of Flint. I'm George Moss, and we are going to be hosting a program this afternoon. We have with us Mr. Greg Eason, and we're very glad to have him on flinttalkradio.com. We're going to be asking Mr. Eason some questions here as a mayoral candidate running for the mayor of the City of Flint, and we're very happy to have you, Mr. Eason, for our guest.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moss. It's glad to be here.
Well, I'd like to jump right into the fray. Let me ask you, Mr. Eason, why do you want to become the mayor of the City of Flint?
Well, I've lived in Flint for the last 30 years, and I've seen a lot of changes go on over the course of the last 30 years. And I really feel that this is one of the best times and probably one of the most opportune times to create the kind of change we need to create in Flint, Michigan. I feel like I'm uniquely positioned to actually take on such a task because of my executive experience that I've been around over the last 30 years, and 20 of those years I've spent as an executive, president and CEO of major institutions. I've actually am the only candidate of all of the candidates that's actually overseen well over $100 to $150 million of federal, state, and foundation fundings. I'm the only candidate that has actually been a president and CEO of major federally funded institutions. I'm the only one that's had the executive experience of making major decisions. I'm the only one that's ever written multi-million-dollar grant proposals and got them funded. I'm the only one that's restructured organizations and have a demonstrated track records. But more importantly, I also have operated a business of my own. I actually operated my own workforce development organization for banks. I ran one of the largest banking schools in the state of Michigan for all 200 of the banks in the state of Michigan, providing training to over 40,000 employees who are bankers. So I have such a broad-based experience in executive experience, workforce development, economic development, and building institutions and moving moving organizations forward.
Okay. I was looking at your brochure a few minutes ago, and I was wondering why you're not running for president. I think that if I ask you about why you feel that you're qualified, it looks like that brochure pretty much breaks that down in terms of the things you've done here.
Yes. You know, Mr. Moss, one of the things I wanted to do and what makes my literature maybe different from the other candidates is that I think one of the things that is critical for constituents who are trying to decide who they want as their next mayor is that we no longer can just elect people on the basis of their name. We can no longer elect people on the basis of promises that they've given us. We need to have a demonstrated track record and a list of accomplishments that ensures that they do have the capacity and the skill sets to be able to deliver on the promises that they make.
I see. I didn't know that you had some foundational that you were foundational in the Broome Center?
Yes, I'm the founder of the Broome Center. I wrote the original proposal for the Broome Center, and my foundation funded it to the tune of about $5.5 million. It had the capacity of generating about $9.8 million a year annually, and we were moving in that direction under my leadership, but I made the decision to take a job working for the banks.
I see. What year was that founded?
That was in 1992.
In 92.
When I took over an organization called Job Central in 1991, it had some problems, and one of my goals and objectives was not only to correct the problems, but to build capacity in organizations. So there's a number of things that we did. Not only did we straighten out a lot of the infrastructural weaknesses inside of organizations and strengthen them, but we increased the funding from $8.5 million to $18.5 million in the course of about 3 years. The other thing is I submitted a strategic plan to my board of directors, and in that strategic plan were 4 basic components. One was the Sylvester Broome Junior Training Technology Center, $5.5 million project. The other one was the Flint Genesee County Job Corps Center, which was a $20.5 million brick and mortar with a potential of $150 million over 30 years.
I see.
That's about $170.5 million investment in the community. And the other one was the Career Alliance Center, which was then called the Walter P. Reuther Workforce Development Center, the second one in the state.
Was that on Fifth Avenue?
That's on Fifth Avenue and Robert T. Longway and Saginaw Street.
I see.
Yes.
Okay. that it pretty much shows the qualifications, and so that puts that issue to bed. Let me ask you about your priorities. If you are elected the mayor of the city of Flint, what would you say would be your top 3 priorities?
The number one priority for me, Mr. Moss, is safety, because everything else is built around a safe community. And so safety becomes number one in my book. One of the things I hope to achieve is to be able to create and to establish not only just a public safety system, but a public safety policy. And we're going to have to rethink how we deliver public safety services in our community. Given the fact that we don't have the resources that we used to have, given the fact that we don't have the population that we used to have, given the fact that we're going to have to find ways to collaborate with the county, with the state government, and with the FBI in some cases. We've got to reform our public safety systems. One of the things that we've never done is we've never sat down and established a public safety strategy for Flint. Flint in 1975 had an approximate population of 200,000 people. Right now it's estimated between 100,000 to 115,000. And so even though I know that there are some people that are very concerned about the number of police officers that are being laid off, I'm not as alarmed as they are, because I think that there's some opportunities there that we need to go back to the table and readdress. And part of when I read the studies in criminology based upon other communities our size, given the kind of dollars that come to our community and the population size, we're not far off from the number of officers that we should be having. What we have been accustomed to is having a large public safety system based on a declining population. And so what we're beginning to see now is not a decrease in the police department. What we're seeing is a right sizing of our community.
A response to the downsizing of the population?
A response to the right sizing. Right. Yes. So when you're given the number of people we have in our community, and you're given the facilities and the services we provide and the dollars that come in, we're not really far off from other communities our size to get the same volume of dollars that we get and offers the same services we do.
Okay.
What we're going to have to do, though, is change our paradigms and then begin to reform. Typical example, we have some duplication of efforts between the city and the county, special ops being one, whereas the county offers special ops services and the city offers special ops services. I think that if the city and the county can sit down and talk about how maybe we can loan 2 or 3 officers to the county, then allow the county to do the special ops services for both the city and the county, it may free up anywhere between 15 to 20 police officers that we can actually put out in the field. So there's some opportunities there. The other thing is we've never really pursued grant opportunities in terms of law enforcement. The city has never really had a grants department. So there are dollars that we really, quite frankly, have not even looked at that maybe we can begin to identify that maybe enable us to be able to hire some additional officers.
I see.
The other thing is that there's some other areas in state patrols where there's some duplication, replications. Lastly, there are some high technology tools that are available now. In Saginaw, Michigan, they're using some high technology crime tools. For example, you can shoot a gun and they have satellite systems now that will pinpoint exactly where the shot is coming from. Now, how does that translate to us? What for us right now, when a gun is shot, it may take a police officer 3 or 4 hours, depending upon how friendly the community is to giving them that information. We can reduce that time and allow them to be much more effective and much more efficient by supplementing or augmenting using high technology tools. And so there's a lot of different ways we can rethink this.
I see.
I think there's some inefficiencies throughout the whole government system where, traditionally speaking, what we've always resorted to is transferring dollars out of revenue generating departments such as water and sewage and loaning the money to the general fund without us taking a look at some of the inefficiencies and figuring out how we can be more performance driven. And as a result, there are some dollars we can free up. So I think there's a number of different ways that we can figure out, if we don't have the exact number or as close to approximate number we need of cops and fire officers, that we can look for alternatives to get the resources to do that. That's my number one, crime.
Okay.
Number 2 is business development and economic development. The city of Flint, throughout the history of the city of Flint, economic development and business development has never been a high priority. To some extent, the reason why that existed is because we have always been blessed by General Motors. And General Motors always made up the difference in tax revenues. Well, General Motors doesn't have the presence that it had over the last 20 or 30 years. And so what that means now is that we're going to have to rethink our whole economy here in Flint, diversify that economy. One of the things that I've been doing is I've been doing a lot of exploring and had some conversations with people at Kettering University, people with the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, connected to the University of Michigan-Flint. We have state-of-the-art fuel cell technology systems here in Flint, Michigan at Kettering, that the federal government is giving millions of dollars in the development of that area, alternative energy. University of Michigan-Flint, University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, solar cell technology, state-of-the-art, nationally recognized. And so there's some opportunities. Why can't we have a leader who can bring together these synergies and see what can evolve out of this? We have right in our midst opportunities for alternative energy, and being one of probably the Silicon Valley of alternative energy located right here in Flint. We can be the alternative energy mecca. It makes good sense because if we can connect some venture capitalists who are always looking for opportunities, and when we have a president who has made a commitment to trillions, if not billions of dollars, committed to alternative energy, this is the new wave, this is the direction we're going, and we're never going back. So we don't have an alternative but to take a look at alternative energy. So there's some opportunities for entrepreneurs, for venture capitalists. The other thing is for venture capitalists, not only do they have the resources, but the advantage that we bring is that these educational institutions are brain trusts. So they don't have to spend millions of dollars in research and development. What they can do is they can procure that kind of those kind of resources and that kind of intelligence from the university and be centrally located here. Because in most cases, when you start talking about high tech, you better have a research and development in order to remain competitive. The question is it more cost effective to be able to be close to an institution that has those facilities and, quite frankly, to some extent, be supplemented by government funds?
I see.
In a lot of other countries, the reason what makes those countries a lot more competitive in terms of the businesses is because a tremendous amount of the cost is borne by the government. If you take a look at the United Kingdom, if you take a look at France, if you take a look at part of what makes their healthcare systems work is because the government has assumed a tremendous amount of responsibility. So what that means in terms of manufacturing, using China as an example, the state owns a lot of that. Well, we don't want that in America, but what we do want is to be able to strategically locate businesses where they're close to educational institutions and research departments to kind of defray some of their costs, which will make them competitive. What can come out of that is possibly anywhere between 2,000 to 3,000 jobs over the course of the next 10 years. Now, that's just one industry. If you were to sit down and have a discussion with Hurley Medical Center, with Genesis Medical Center, and you were to talk to McLaren, they're right now in the process of having discussions centered around high technology systems where we'll show you how to do operations using digital models, that they can outsource these services, if you will, or sell them to hospitals all across the country. So there's just tremendous opportunities that sit in our midst. So economic development is the second highest priority. Community development. I keep saying to people, we need to have a master plan. The last time that there was even a conversation about a master plan that was of any substance was in 1965. It was never really completed. And so it's been since 1965 that we really have actually put on the table the actuality of developing a master plan. As we talk about rethinking our community, a master plan is the most logical way for us to do this. And here's why I keep saying this. In the last 30 years, almost $7 billion have gone through the city of Flint. That's a lot of money.
In the last 7 years?
In this last 30 years, over $7 billion have gone through the city of Flint.
That's it.
And so even though we do have the challenge of a $14 to $15 million deficit, that to me is not as significant as what did we do with the $7 billion. We've had enough resources to have redeveloped Flint 2 or 3 times. The question is, why haven't the leaders who were in positions and who were elected to do that, why didn't they do it? I don't have the answer to that. What I do say is we can't continue that pattern.
I see.
We have to have a plan. I have some concern about roping off communities in our communities. Because when you start talking about roping off, and if the justification behind roping off a community is that for some reason you're going to save a few dollars in the cost of city services, I have some really difference of opinion with that.
Would you explain what you mean by roping off?
Well, you know, there's been some concern and there's been some conversation about certain communities being roped off and shut down. And as a result of shutting those communities down or roping them off, we don't have to provide city services to some of those communities, thereby supposedly saving dollars. Well, you know, there may be some truth to that. But there's also some truth to the fact that I don't believe that some of those areas they're talking about roping off ever really received the city services that they said they received. Because most of those city services that supposedly they were providing were in highly impoverished areas, economically disadvantaged and hard to serve, and indigent areas. And the complaint amongst those people who live there is they didn't see the police. They didn't see the fire department. They didn't get a lot of those city services. So I question how much of that is really true. The other thing is that if there is a truth to it and there's a dollar amount, I think it would be I don't think it's that significant that it's going to put a huge dent in the deficit of $15 million. Thirdly is if you're approaching doing this making this kind of a move, it needs to be communicated in the context that what we're talking about is temporarily roping off a community to think about redeveloping that community. I constantly say to people that I talk to, regentification, I don't believe is a reality here, but it is a perception in the mind of those people who may become affected. Because in many of these communities we're talking about roping off, these are people who experienced 40, 20, 30 years ago, a 475 being drove through their communities and a whole community being displaced. We don't want that kind of panic and we don't want that kind of fear. And we have enough resources if we plan and have a plan to work from to be able to redevelop these communities and make it a beautiful place, to have affordable housing for people to live in. For those individuals who may live in communities where there's a tremendous amount of blight and their homes is centrally located, to give them options. Some of the options may be, do you want to take the 2 houses beside you if we can maybe expand the green field? Some of it may be, are you open to the idea of us relocating you into more affordable housing? There's a lot of options that we can put on the table. So crime is an important, public safety is important, number one. Number two, economic development, business development. Number three, community development is essential. The third one that I think is very critical is that we've got to bring this community together. All of the different quadrants. No matter where you live in this community, we all share some common denominators. We all want a safe community. We all want our kids to go to decent schools. There's some things, and so a master plan enables us to be able to bring people from all sectors of this community to sit down and talk about how do we want our community to look. It's a great way to do what I call great ambassadorship.
I see. I found it fascinating that you put safety at the top. When I was principal, I tried to convince my board member that safety was our first mission. He thought that education was, and I was saying that if we don't have the children safe, then how are they going to be educated?
Yeah.
And so I think that's very interesting that you put that.
Yeah.
I'm taking it that you are saying then that by having the Flint area a more safe community, then development will be a consequence of that.
I that's exactly what I'm saying, Mr. Moss. You can't convince business people to come in and locate their business in a place that's not safe. You can't convince people.
That's all right. We're gonna don't start dancing out there. This is just this cell phone.
I
think it's James Brown that just
I
showed up.
apologize. The fact of the matter is, you have to have a safe community, and it must be a base foundation for you to do any kind of community development, any economic development. And so I think it's number one.
I see. Well, let me ask you about the team then. You have some very interesting programs, and you thought these things out very clearly. Obviously, you've been doing some thinking about it. Have you gotten any players in place? Is there anybody in mind that you would put over certain departments in your administration?
No, quite frankly, I haven't been that arrogant yet. No, I have not.
The day after the election.
Yeah. No, I haven't. My focus for the most part has been is hoping to be one of the people that come out of the primary. Mm-hmm. What I will assure that if I'm granted an opportunity to become mayor is that I will have a competent group of people that will be working with me. And I believe that we do have those people that live in Flint and in Genesee County.
Well, another point, today, as you know, is our tax day.
Yes.
And we have, I was looking at a map this morning on Good Morning America, and CNN was also showing this map of all these tea parties they're having around the country. Mm-hmm. And I thought about a question I wanted to ask you. In terms of in the city of Flint, we've had two mayors, one of whom was recalled and another one was kind of pressured to leave office prematurely. And this reverberating issue of confidence in government, the 13%, for example, of the Congress, people are saying they have no confidence in government. What would you do if you were mayor to restore a little bit more stability in the local politics of Flint and confidence in the local government?
Let me answer that from a two-pronged standpoint. One of the things that I'm trying to ask of the constituents of the city of Flint now, Mr. Moss, is we have to some extent assume the responsibility that we elect these people who we say we don't have any confidence in. And so that's why I ask these people that please do not elect people no more on the basis of a name. Do not elect people on the basis of a promise. Elect them by doing your due diligence. Ask the question, what have you done for me lately?
I see.
What skill sets do you have that will ensure that all of these promises that you make, you can deliver on? Do you have the executive experience? Do you have the economic development experience? Do you have the political skills, but do you have all the other critical skills that's going to be needed to move a community forward? We have been very fortunate in Flint that because we had General Motors here, whenever we made mistakes, we could cover them up. So even though I don't feel we had the kind of leadership that we needed, we had the money to cover up for it. Well, we don't have that anymore. So one of the things I'm asking of people is please elect a person on the basis that they have the skills, they have a demonstrated track record, and that they have the experience that's going to be needed to do the things that need to be done. As mayor, if you elect a person who has that, the chances are you won't be disappointed with their performance.
That's a very interesting response to the question. You're saying that, and let me see if I'm reading this correctly, that you kind of get what you ask for.
Yes.
And if the voters are not on their job, so to speak,
yes,
then this kind of installment of these leaders that are inappropriate to the task,
yes,
would be the consequence.
Yes.
Can you look in the camera? I know the camera here is very, in our studio in FlintTalkRadio.com. We have a very small camera.
That's okay.
We're not CBS yet. We're going in that direction. But I want you. Can you look in the camera and tell the people of the city of Flint that you're going to run an honest, open government?
One of the things I promised the citizens of the city of Flint is I will run an honest, transparent, and open government. That is one of the reasons why I keep saying we need to have a master plan. When you have a plan, what it does, quite frankly, it forces the issue of openness. It forces the issue of transparency, because you then will involve all sectors of this community in the process. You can then establish performance standards in terms of knowing not only if something's going to get done, but when it's going to get done and how it's going to get done and how much it's going to cost. The other thing that I would like to do, institute, I think it's well worth the city's investment, even if it costs us $20,000 or $25,000 a year, to hire an outside organization to do nothing but to do a survey on the performance of the leader which you elect, so that there's no surprises on the part of the elected official, and there's no surprises on the part of the electorate about who's going to get reelected and who's not going to get reelected. The same way in a private business concern, and I'm not saying that you should run the people's business like you run a private business, but I think we've got to start thinking about how do we incorporate some of those good business principles into good government. And so there should be no surprise that if an elected official tells you within a certain time frame that they're going to accomplish some things for you, then you need to give him a report card, or you need to give her a report card. And if for some reason they have not been able to do it and it's outside of their reach, then at least they need to give you an explanation. That's what being open, that's what being honest is all about. The other reason why I really want a master plan, and the other reason why I'm saying to you, I want to be open and honest. Another way that I can demonstrate that to you is collaboration. You see, there are some synergies here that we can really take a look at the materials in which we're purchasing. The city purchased asphalt, the county purchased asphalt, the city purchased concrete. And so why aren't we sitting down talking about how can we collectively purchase in volume so that the cost of those materials is a lot more cost effective for us? Well, when you have collaboration, what it does is it forces us now not to make a lot of politically driven decisions, that now purchasing decisions are based upon political IOUs and political favors.
I see.
And so I'm saying to you, there's a host of different pieces you can put into place to ensure that at least government can be as open and as honest and as transparent as it possibly can be. And I'm committed to doing that because my interest is not in getting reelected. I want to believe that I will be reassured reelection if I do my job.
Well, I'll say that I was watching him to see if he's looking in the camera, and he looked right into the camera and said these things. So I always had a problem with people when they look down and start talking to me. I have a lot of confidence. That's a very strong statement that you made there to the people of the city of Flint. Let me ask you, who are some of your heroes and heroines, people that you admire in the political arena? And maybe we could do that on all levels, maybe some international persons that have impressed you, and maybe a couple of national names that we could kind of get some sense of who your models and who your heroes and sheroes are, and that have acted politically at some level.
One of the individuals who I've had a great amount of reverence for and respect for is Benjamin Hooks. I don't think that he's received the kind of credit that was due to him. Mm-hmm. If it had not been for him, I don't think that the NAACP could have achieved certain goals which is achieved. Mm-hmm. What a lot of people really don't understand is that we're all standing on the shoulders of giants.
Yes.
And these are pioneers who, quite frankly, in the face of a lot of diversity. You see, when I take a look at individuals like Michael Jordan, or we look at some of these other individuals who now are billionaires and multimillionaires and outstanding athletes and outstanding stars, none of that could have happened if it had not been for the labor, the commitment, the perseverance, and the sacrifice of individuals such as like a Benjamin Hooks. Mm-hmm. And so when I look at this gentleman, whenever I would see him, sometimes my eyes would almost tear up, because you and I really don't know the discussions that went behind the scenes that afforded me the opportunity to get an education, that afforded somebody else an opportunity to start an African-American business. That guy, I think, did a tremendous amount of good for us. Mm-hmm. That doesn't diminish the fact that there are other wonderful people such as Martin Luther King, and Malcolm X. There's a host of other people who, when I read their materials, and I want to encourage people that sometimes when you see individuals that you think you admire, you need to read about them, study them. That's really what has increased my passion, is part of the reason why I feel very strongly about running for mayor is because in my research and my study about individuals who've actually had to be trailblazers in the face of a lot of diversity, you need to read about some of the things that they had to go through and some of the decisions that they had to make. So, Benjamin Hook's in my mind, and I'll always say that. Locally, my mentor was Sylvester Broom.
I see. Locally.
And the reason why Sylvester Broom locally was my mentor, and it was a hero in my book, was when I took over an organization called Job Central, it had a lot of problems. And there was only one African-American elected official who said to me, Greg, I'm going to be very candid with you. I've sat on this board for well over 10 years, and I've watched a lot of things go wrong. And finally, I think I found a young man who really his heart is in the right place. And I'm willing to do whatever I need to do to ensure that you have the political leverage that you need to change things. And he stood by my side in the wake of a lot of adversity. And we were able to change a system that African American people and economically disadvantaged and hard to serve people needed so desperately. And that's why I named the facility after him.
Well, I have to tell you something, that I had a lot of contact behind the scenes with Mr. Broom, and I was a very great admirer of his commitment. And he was part of a book club that we had at the library, and I was really just amazed at how
he was well-read.
Well-read, and quite a substantive person. Well, since you had your cell phone go off and we had a little music here, I'm kind of interested now. We talk about your political heroes and heroines. I'm interested in what kind of music would you listen to? You relaxing at home? And
I'm a jazz fanatic.
You're a jazz fanatic.
Jazz to my heart. I'm a jazz musician. Oh, yeah. I play jazz keyboard, and so I'm a jazz collector. So I love jazz. I started playing in bands when I was 13 years old, and I kind of worked my way through college playing in bands. And I played jazz and played a lot of standards and ballads and those kinds of things. So I'm a jazz lover to my heart.
Yeah, a lot of the albums are collected and that kind of thing.
Oh, yes. I go all the way back. In fact, I still have some 78s and 33s, 33 and a thirds. I go all the way back to the 40s. I love it.
Any of jazz, any other musical?
I love new age music. I love jazz music. I'm a real big fan of gospel music. I like some R&B, but I'm a musician, so I love all kinds of music. But specifically, I love jazz. I love R&B. I love new age music, and I love Christian music.
I see. Well, we have spent about 29 minutes in our conversation, and I've learned a lot about, there were some things I didn't know. I know you very well, but there were some things I learned. In the last minute that we have before the program is over, why don't you just simply take that last minute and say anything that you want to say to the listening audience, and just simply say anything that we have not yet stated in the program.
What I'd like to say to all of the citizens of Flint is I've lived in this community for 30 years, and I have an invested interest in this community. I believe in my heart that Flint can be one of the greatest communities and a world-class community. We have a unique opportunity to transform our city, and it can happen. It can be done. But in order for it to happen, we're going to need new leadership. We're going to need new leaders that bring to the table a different set of skills, unlike we've ever had in the past. If you'll just give me an opportunity, as you've given other politicians who are running for this job like I am, if you'll just give me a chance to prove to you that Flint can be moved forward, it can be different. We can be a better community. We can be a thriving community. That's all I ask you, just to give me that chance.
Okay, FlintTalkRadio.com wants to thank Mr. Gregory Eason for coming into the studio and doing this program with us. We've enjoyed having as our guest Hope you will continue to watch the program as we have other candidates for the city of Flint's mayor, and you'll make your choice in the primaries. Thank you again, Mr. Eason, for coming to the studio.
Thank you, Mr. Moss.